In this movie, we're going to take a few minutes to talk about variables. Now, variables is a concept that all programming languages have. A variable is simply a container to hold data. Now, that data can change. It doesn't remain the same, but it's a way to store that data so that you can use it later or use it multiple times. Now, let me open up the JavaScript console. Now, in an earlier exercise, we did the following. Created a variable and set it equal to my name, and then we did console.log to display the variable to the console. And that's what it does. Now, we could have just as easily done this. The end results would be the same, as you can see. So why use a variable instead of just entering the name? Well, the advantage of the variable is that it really could contain any name. Let's just use an example that we have a website where we have the user enter their information, their profile information. And depending on which user is on the website, that's the name that it's going to display. It uses the same variable, but the contents of that variable just being a container, the contents of that variable would be different. Another reason is once it's assigned to a variable, we can use it over and over again. For example, there's one. Again, we just continue to use it, and that's another advantage of a variable. Alright, let me clear my console. And let's talk about the syntax of a variable. We've seen it already, but let me talk about the parts. var is an important part when you're declaring a variable. This is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. Then the variable name. Then the assignment operator, which is the equal sign, assignment operator. This is saying the value on the right of this is what's going to get assigned to the variable. Put my dog's name, Pika. That gets assigned to the variable dog name. And then we close it with a semicolon. Once again, that semicolon is optional, but as I've recommended, you should always enter that. We just created a variable. Now, to reference that variable, we simply use the variable name. There we reference the variable. So anytime we use the variable name, it references it. And then it pulls the value that was stored in that container out and does whatever we need to do with it. In this case, it displays it to the console. Now, another thing about variables is we can update an existing variable. So if I wanted to change the dog name to Rover, I would simply reference the variable, put the assignment operator in, and then put the new value. I don't use var again. Var is only used the first time you are declaring a variable. So var is for declaration. Once you've declared a variable, you can change it, and you change it without the var keyword. Now when I reference the dog name variable, it comes back as Rover. Let me clear the console again. And let's create another variable. We're going to call this variable greeting, if I can spell. We're going to put in there the text, hello there. Okay, we have that variable established. Now notice what we can do. Now we have two variables. We can concatenate them together, and it displays the contents of both of them. So an example where variables are valuable, let's say we have multiple greetings that we want to give a particular user. Well, we just have multiple variables. Greeting 1, greeting 2, greeting 3 could be named that way, or greeting formal. That's another way that you can use variables. This is something else we can do. I'm going to declare one more variable, full greeting. I'm going to set this equal to the contents of the other two variables we've created. Now when we enter full greeting, it comes back, hello there, Rover. So it has the contents of those two variables in it. So that container now contains what was in the two other containers. All right, we can also do this with numbers. So let me clear again. Let's create a variable num and set it equal to 32. There we go. Num is equal to 32. Let's create another variable, num2 is equal to 5. Now we can manipulate the data in the variables the same way we did with the values in a previous movie. We use operators to do that. So num plus 10 comes back 42. We can also do num and then some operator and the other variable. So this is going to be num times num2. So the contents of num is 32. The contents of num2 is 5. And that comes out to be 160. Now if we change num, then do the same statement again. Now what I'm doing here to get back to a previous statement I'd enter is I'm pressing the up arrow. The up arrow in the console will take you to statements you've already entered. So I'm going back to that previous statement. I want to enter it again. Now this time we get a different result because num has changed. Num is no longer 32. Num is now 10. So we put a different value into that variable. And we can do the same thing with this variable. We can create a new variable and set it equal to the product of the other two variables.